WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just...
According to reports, the meeting room doors at the WNBA offices were securely locked. Additionally, the atmosphere within was desperate rather than just anxious. This meeting was not called by WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert to discuss regular scheduling updates or quarterly earnings. Insiders are characterizing this all-hands-on-deck scenario as a desperate attempt to preserve the league's narrative before everything entirely goes out of control. This unexpected concern was caused by an impending statement from NBC that has the potential to completely upend the women's basketball hierarchy rather than a controversy involving a failed drug test or a legal issue. Referees have been suppressing their whistles while rookies are being hammered in the paint, and veterans have been making fun of the new face of the game for months. However, the corporate rulers have finally had enough. The WNBA is about to receive billions of dollars from NBC and other media behemoths, but rumor has it that their investment has very specific conditions. And Caitlin Clark is directly connected to those strings. The emergency meeting was about a hostile takeover of the league's culture, not only basketball. And what transpired behind closed doors will permanently alter the sport. However, you need to look at what NBC just presented in order to comprehend why the commissioner is perspiring. This was not merely a broadcast partner's courteous recommendation. Everyone was reminded of who really pays the bills by this power move. According to sources, NBC execs have been following the current season with a mix of revulsion at the way the product is being managed and delight, music, over the ratings. You want your star asset to be highlighted rather than headhunted when you sign such a large check. According to whispers circulating across the league, NBC made it very evident that the Caitlin Clark phenomenon is at the core of their broadcasting strategy. The everyone gets a trophy participation mentality that has dogged the league's marketing for years doesn't appeal to them. They want to be treated like Michael Jordan. They want the narratives to be simplified, the stars to be safeguarded, and the narrative to be concentrated. According to reports, the meeting's emergency component resulted from an ultimatum. The network will intervene and publicly set the rules, or the league will put an end to internal sabotage of its main attraction. For a league that has taken great pride in teamwork, it's a tough reality check, but commercial aviation is no longer an option, and those who pay for charter flights want to ensure that the jet arrives where the money is. The commissioner's untenable position is the reason this situation is so unstable. Right now, Cathy Engelbert is balancing 2 antagonistic forces that despise one another on a razor's edge. The millionaire executives from NBC, Amazon, and Disney, who see Caitlin Clark as the harvest and the WNBA as a content farm, are on one side of her. Conversely, she has a locker room culture and a players' union that strongly oppose the notion that one player is greater than the shield. It is thought that Engelbert had to break the terrible news to the WNBA's elderly guard at their private meeting. The message's honesty was probably brutal. The world's sudden appreciation of the game's principles isn't the reason for the increased attention, pay increases, and exposure. They are occurring as a result of a single popularity lightning strike. Admitting that a rookie saved the league is a tough pill to swallow for veterans who have been working for 10 years with no recognition, so the tension in that meeting must have been thick enough to cut with a knife. However, the networks don't give a damn about dues. Ad revenue is important to them. Additionally, the data currently indicates that viewers switch channels when number 22 is on the bench. However, when you consider the date of this intervention, the plot becomes more complex. This urgent meeting follows the debate around the Olympic roster, a choice that many consider to be the war's initial blow between the league's coaches and the networks. Recall that the Olympics are televised by NBC. The committee did more than just offend the people when they chose to exclude the world's most popular female athlete off the roster. They are said to have cost the network millions of dollars in lost advertising income. There are rumors that this was the CEO's tipping point. They witnessed a guaranteed ratings bonanza was squandered due to internal politics and basketball-related issues. This emergency summit was perhaps the last one to be held. There is conjecture that the new contracts will contain provisions that prohibit future instances of this type of self-sabotage. The league must play the big talents if it hopes to make a lot of money. A purist sports attitude collides with a brutal corporate philosophy. Additionally, the team with the checkbook typically prevails. There are rumors circulating that Engelbert had to guarantee that the league would cease attempting to dehumanize Clark and instead try to take advantage of her, even if doing so would damage the egos of every other player in the association. This gets us to the unsaid matter that was most likely discussed in private during the meeting. The officiating. A player who gets clotheslined every time she drives to the basket while the referees turn a blind eye cannot be the center of a billion-dollar brand. Fans and, according to reports, sponsors are now part of a burgeoning conspiracy idea that the league has been permitting extreme aggression toward Clark in order to make a statement. Although it's the welcome to the W ethos, it appears to be poor product management to a casual viewer and, more significantly, to a network executive. The ratings plummet and investment plummets if a veteran chooses to send a message by injuring your top player. Cleaning up the game was probably one of the directives from the emergency meeting. This is about protecting assets, not about manipulating games. The NBA took care of Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron. For years, the WNBA has opposed this star-centric officiating, maintaining a tough physical identity, but NBC isn't rewarding grit. Highlights are being paid for. There are rumors that the way the games are called is about to change significantly, and players who don't adjust risk being fouled out or punished to death. But the real gloomy part of this story is the participants' resistance. The psychology of the locker room must be understood. WNBA players have battled for scraps for years, playing in hazardous environments abroad in order to support themselves. The money is finally coming in now, but it seems like it's all attributed to one individual. You can feel the bitterness. There were probably worries about a possible revolt during the meeting. What would happen if the other celebrities declined to take part in the NBC advertisements? What would happen if the Caitlin Clark team experienced social and cultural isolation from the rest of the league? Rumor has it that players are sending journalists private messages in an attempt to fabricate stories about how hostile her fans are or how overrated Clark is. Before this civil war spills onto the court and harms the brand, Engelbert needs to handle it. This meeting's emergency portion focused on containment. Veterans must embrace the new reality and smile for the cameras, but egos are brittle. It is feared that if the league pushes the NBC agenda too hard, the players may rebel, resulting in a PR disaster where the league is accused of partiality and insulting the game's founders. Since money is the main focus of this, let's examine it in more detail. Even if the WNBA's value has increased dramatically, this is a bubble created by a single demographic shift. There is a Caitlin Clark economy. In certain measurements, the Indiana Fever's ticket sales are surpassing those of the entire league. Opposing teams relocate their games to larger venues when the Fever travel. The proprietors are aware of this. They are not foolish. However, the incentives used by general managers and coaches are different. Their goal is to win games. And occasionally it entails playing tough or concentrating on defense. There has never been a greater gap between the business side, represented by the owners and commissioners, and the basketball side, represented by the coaches and players. This conference was an attempt to use force to close that gap. Most likely, the message conveyed was that corporate imperatives could no longer be compromised by basketball judgments. Without a valid medical cause, the coach cannot choose to rest Clark that evening in order to manage her workload if NBC requests a primetime slot. The requirements of the media agreement are limiting the freedom of the basketball operations personnel, or REHC. Efficiency brutally eradicates romanticism while attempting to transform a league from a niche interest to a worldwide superpower, but it's a harsh pill. Regarding the particular NBC announcement described, there is also a darker, more speculative perspective. According to some insiders, NBC is preparing a documentary-style series that will track the league, much like Drive to Survive for Formula One, but with a strong emphasis on the rookies. If this is accurate, the veterans' terror makes sense. They are aware that whoever is in charge of editing oversees the story. The veterans' reputation as the antagonists in their own league is cemented if the cameras are following Clark and Reese and they are depicted as the villains or the obstacles that the young stars must overcome. The Players Association may have used the emergency meeting as a platform to express their fear of this possibility. To Caitlin Clark's Harlem Globetrotters, they don't want to be the Washington Generals. They want to be respected. However, the cruel truth of sports entertainment and reality TV is that conflict sells. NBC is aware that the story of the Queen versus the Rookie is superior to that of everyone being buddies. The commissioner's job is to persuade the players that it is more lucrative to play the villain than the victim. However, Competitive athletes who feel mistreated find it difficult to accept that. We must also discuss the silence. Have you noticed how cautious the recent official comments have been? The league's PR apparatus tightened its grip after the first round of jealous remarks early in the season. This emergency meeting probably reaffirmed a type of gag order, possibly not legally binding, but strongly implying that disparaging remarks about the league's cash cow will not be accepted. The management are aware that each time a player disparages Clark's popularity on a podcast, it alienates the millions of new listeners. NBC is aiming for those new fans. They switch off the TV if they watch and think the league despises the player they came to watch. This is a retention game, as the commissioner is aware. The lightning struck them. They must now keep it in the bottle. The purpose of the gathering was to align the messaging. You don't have to like her, but you can't openly undermine the product she stands for. Players who have taken pride in being vocal and self-reliant are having a corporate leash tightened around their necks. In all of this, what about Caitlin Clark herself? She hasn't changed her attitude. The ideal corporate soldier, saying the right things. However, she is under tremendous strain. Her aim is higher than anything we've seen in sports in a long time because NBC is putting the house on her success. The strategy falls apart if she fails or is hurt. In essence, this meeting was a risk assessment. The wolves are surrounding the league because it is placing all of its eggs in one basket. Building a fence around it is the commissioner's responsibility. In the off-season, rules that support offensive freedom may be changed. Shorter shot clocks, more stringent foul calls, unlawful defense regulations, anything to give shooters more room to shoot. The accountants will mumble that it's safeguarding the franchise's future, while purists will yell that it's destroying the game's integrity. This emergency meeting was the cocoon stage in the WNBA's transformation. Ugly, disorganized, and out of sight, but essential to the emergence of the new shape. We also need to examine the purported NBC clause pertaining to marketing responsibilities. According to rumors, the new media agreement calls for a specific amount of promotional material from the league's biggest stars. Until you realize that it establishes a hierarchy, this seems normal. The other 143 players will compete for the remaining ad time if the network requires that Clark receive 50% of it. Aya Wilson, Brianna Music Stewart, and other elite players' agents are probably incensed. They observe that the marketing materials for a rookie ignore their clients, who are perhaps better basketball players right now. This equity issue had to be discussed at the emergency meeting. When the spotlight is solely focused on the rookie, how do you keep the MVPs satisfied? Engelbert probably had to assure the veterans that even if their names aren't on the billboard, the money from it will go toward their pension fund by promising revenue sharing and rising tide lifts all boats. It's a deal, exchanging fame for wealth. However, celebrity is the most important commodity for egocentric athletes. This meeting has ramifications that go beyond this season. The WNBA's business operations are about to undergo a significant change. The NBA funded the WNBA for many years. Many financial analysts saw it as a charity case. The WNBA now has a route to profitability thanks to the NBC deal and the Clark bump. However, that route necessitates adopting the celebrity model and giving up the sisterhood concept. The impromptu gathering served as the former WNBA's funeral. Everyone in the league flew coach and it's dying to stay in subpar motels. The new league is emerging, propelled by large TV contracts and luxury jets. However, the labor pangs are unbearable. Kicking and screaming into this new era are the athletes who are holding fast to the old ways. The vibes past doesn't matter to NBC. The broadcast's Q rating is important to them. As the transition manager, the commissioner's emergency meeting served as a kind of warning. Join the group or risk being left behind. Consider the long-term consequences of the proposed officiating modifications. The scouting reports will be altered if the league becomes more accommodating in order to shield Clark. Faster, more proficient shooters who suit the TV-friendly look may eventually replace the large, burly enforcers who earned a career in the paint. Every team's roster will be constructed differently. There is more than one player involved. It concerns the development of the metagame. This was probably discussed throughout the meeting. It's likely that general managers were instructed to begin searching for players that fit the new WNBA, high-scoring, fast-paced, musical, and marketable. The days of grinded-out defense winning a game 60-55 are over because that scoreline kills ratings. 90-85 is what NBC wants. Buzzer beaters are what they desire. Drama is what they, music, seek. The commissioner is aware that money departs if the product is uninteresting. She must therefore create excitement, even if it seems fake to purists. The villain arc is another component. Antagonists are necessary if the league adopts the drama as NBC probably want. The rivalries may have been fostered by the emergency conference, but only under strict constraints. It's the sporting equivalent of the WWE. You need the heels, the bitter veterans, and the face, Clark. The risk arises when the screenplay becomes very realistic and the hard fouls become assaults. The purpose of the discussion was probably to draw a distinction between a successful TV drama and a disastrous PR campaign. They don't want the litigation, but they do want the publicity. It's a delicate dance. It was urgent to put an end to the rumors that players or groups were deliberately targeting Clark. Engelbert had to look the coaches in the eye and warn them that the suspension would be historic if anyone was found purposefully attempting to harm the Golden Goose. A martyr is not something the league can afford. Lastly, we need to think about what comes next. There will be an announcement from NBC soon. We will see the outcomes of this meeting in real time as it drops. Observe how the next several games are officiated. Keep an eye on the marketing launches. You'll know exactly who prevailed behind those closed doors if you notice an abrupt change in tone, an abrupt cleanup of the physical play, and a significant push of Clark-centric content. The pivotal moment was the emergency meeting. The WNBA is no longer a community endeavor. It's big company, and in large business, the decision-makers are the shareholders. Although the players may control the court, NBC currently controls the league. Everyone in that meeting had to face the unsettling reality that they were negotiating for peanuts in the absence of Caitlin Clark. They are negotiating millions with her. The commissioner made an easy decision, but the culture suffered as a result. NBC is making sure the camera is aimed precisely where they want it to be when the revolution is televised.